So today we will be deviating away from our usual STEM subjects and instead covering one that is of economic interest. You may have heard this term being buzzed around the business news lately, called the inverted yield curve. So today we'll be talking about the inverted yield curve. First, it is useful to cover what the concept of a government bond is. So basically you just give the government some money, and then each year, for a set number of years, the government will then pay you a dividend, which is a sort of small annual payment each year, and then when the bond matures, normally a couple of years later, the government will return the full sum of money you gave them. Okay, so for how many years and for how much dividend will you get? Well, generally speaking, the longer you wait, the higher the annual dividend payout will be, which makes sense because you've just held up your money for a longer period of time, and so you expect to receive a larger compensation for that. Okay, so things get a little more complicated because we live in a market-based economy, and so we can buy and sell these sort of instruments with each other. Okay. So it then becomes useful to talk about yields instead of dividends, whereby a yield is the ratio between the dividend and the price you paid for that bond. Yield pricing is rather complicated. It's affected by factors such as the central bank interest rate and the general health of the economy. Okay, so now that leads us up to what an inverted yield is. So this is when the longer term bonds, i.e. the bonds which take longer to return your full amount of cash back to you, actually start paying a smaller annual dividend than the shorter term bonds. So for example, if you try and lend the government some money for 10 years, you'll get a smaller amount of annual payment than you would do if you lent it to them for 2 years. So why would an inverted yield exist? Well, the market is expecting a recession to happen soon. It is then seen to be safer to buy longer term bonds. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found my short talk informative and useful. If you found it informative and useful, please hit the subscribe button below.